Welcome to the No Filter, No Apologies podcast with Rebecca Sachs and Katy Shapiro.
So happy St. Patty's Day, everyone. Today we're going to be channeling the luck of the Irish, and we're going to talk about how there's a perception of women being lucky in the work environment. And it's usually, I guess it could be from men or from other women that consider that
It's from everybody.
lucky. But the reality is luck comes from proximity. It comes from courage and preparation.
Yes.
How many times have you heard in the workplace that when somebody gets promoted or someone comes into the organization, they were just at the right place at the right time?
I've heard that a bunch of times, actually. The right place at the right time, or, oh, she's so-and-so's favorite.
Yes.
Instead of, no, she's a badass. And have you seen how hard she was working?
Right.
Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I would say 99% of the time, nobody's seeing what they're doing behind the scenes to get to where they are in their career. And then there's probably that 1 or 0.5% that it's not the right person.
It is. But that's part of the equation that you just gave us, right? If luck equals proximity as part of it, then yeah, you have to make yourself visible.
Yes.
And have proximity to the people who can make those decisions. That is part of it. And then you put forth the courage, but the preparation is the biggest chunk. And I think that's the part that goes undercover that nobody sees.
Yes, nobody sees it.
It's the troll under the bridge.
Hoarding the gold.
Exactly. See?
Hey.
We did not drink in preparation for this podcast.
We probably should have. So yeah, let's talk about proximity. And how many times have you seen women be great at their job, but be invisible?
A lot of times. I think, especially because we take on a lot of work and we keep our heads down and we're like, if I'm perfect at this and if I put out the best product, then people are going to recognize my work. And that doesn't happen. You have to get in front of the people who make big decisions, and you need to make it clear that that work was yours. So that's the second piece of the work that you do, is getting the work done and then making it known that you're the one doing it in front of the people who have the ability to push you forward.
Yeah. And help you make the changes that you're looking to make in your career by taking that next step.
You and I were talking about it today. I didn't force, but I begged Rebecca to watch Hidden Figures, the movie, because there's a great scene where she is the master mathematician that they keep having do the work, but she's not allowed in the meeting and the data's changing too fast for her. So she's always playing catch up. And she insists at one point, she says, if I'm the one that's doing the math, then I need to be in that room getting the information that you give. And it actually puts her at a point where she does an equation in front of everybody, all of these NASA officials. And then I don't want to ruin the end of the movie, but it comes into play at the end of the movie, that proximity and that visibility.
Yeah.
Plus her knowledge, her preparation, her excellence, and her courage to say, get me in that room. That's what got her to where she was later. So
absolutely.
the movie, no, Katherine Johnson.
But with that, right? And it wasn't even that she was a woman of color. It was she was a woman. Mm-hmm. That was the biggest thing. And they said, she's not allowed in here. And he said, why? And like, we don't have women in this room.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't even, yes, at the time, color was a factor, but it wasn't the main factor at that time.
For that particular room.
Right.
Yeah, color was a big factor for the rest.
It was that she was just, we don't have women in that. There's no women. We never had,
we had policy.
We had women in the room. Yeah. And it's very funny. Like, you all are insane.
Like, she couldn't sit on the same chair that you did. I don't know.
Yeah. It's just, okay.
Opened the door. She got 2 working legs. She can walk right through. I mean,
and a brain that's way smarter than anybody else that was in that room.
100%. So proximity plus that preparation, because she was very prepared to be in that room.
Yeah.
Nobody could see that piece.
And I think another factor that comes into play with that, with proximity, is the networking and the people you surround yourself with. And so when it took my women in executive leadership course, one of the first things we learned in I think it was our second class, was your networking capabilities and getting out there and being able to tell people what you do in like 30 seconds or less.
Yes.
Right.
Without pitch.
Yeah. Without having to say what your actual role is, and being able to describe it with authority and conviction and all that good stuff. But you're your network's your net worth, right? And so being able to have
Wait,
people,
say it again, louder for the people in the back. What did you say?
your network is your net worth.
Yes.
And being able to have people around you, so you advocate for yourself, but they also see what you produce and put out and can also advocate for you as well. And if it's not within your organization, even better, because then it gives you exposure to other organizations.
Yes. And it's 2026. There's no excuse not to network. I can tell you, I am a part of a number of in-person networks and virtual networks and hybrid networks that get together virtually one month and then they get together in person the next month. So as a woman, I know that we have a lot on our plate. And I also know that we'll be like, well, I don't have time to network because I got to get this job done. You're not going to be at that job forever. And your network is what's going to help you grow and move into other areas. So find a book club, find, I don't know, a gym membership where a lot of women go. Just put yourself in the right places and make sure that you fit that into your life, just like you would fit in eating, sleeping, resting, all of it.
Yeah. And I think even more recently, right, since being laid off, I've explored and expanded different avenues for growing my network. And I think right now where I am, I don't know that I can take any more on because then I'll just bust at the seams. But in doing so, people are seeing what I can bring to the table and the value that I have, where it was very much underappreciated before.
Yeah.
So those are the environments that you need to put yourself into.
I think it's important for women to, because women aren't usually the majority of the workforce at a certain company, you need to have networks of other women outside of your place of employment. So I think connect groups and things like that in your job are great. Or ERGs, but you need to get out and have a group of women and also other networks professionally in your industry that are not in your business. You need to be really intentional about that. And something I learned, I was burning out at a company. I didn't recognize it while it was happening.
You never do.
And part of burning out, I was withdrawing from my networks. And then when I left that job, I intentionally was going to take some time off. My mom died and I even went more within. And then I started building my own business. And that is sort of a lonely journey too. And I had to be really intentional about putting myself all the way back out there in all of these groups and building new relationships. And so don't slide down that path when you're so underwater. And that's where courage comes in too, with proximity, because you've got to have the courage to say, I can see myself withdrawing, hold yourself accountable to that and put yourself out into another network.
And I think with the networking piece, be intentional and make it a habit at least once a month or once a quarter, whatever your schedule will allow, that you are continuously getting out there and having conversations with people outside of your current work environment.
Yes.
There are stigmas around women making themselves visible within a work environment and celebrating their wins and advocating for themselves, because there are people who will say, negative things about that person who is so excited they just landed this deal, or they finally finished this project they were working on. They got all the executives on board and they're able to move forward. And there will be negative connotation with that because people don't understand the work that has gone into it, right? It's the ignorance piece. And so you can feel shame for being successful and then have people turn their noses up at you. And you're like, what did I do? I did this. This is amazing. Why aren't you celebrating with me? Right.
Yeah.
And so what are ways that we can actively transition that?
Well, can I go back to something that you said though? I think that women are taught to be humble, to be grateful just to be in the room. We're not taught to celebrate ourselves. We're not taught to be loud. We're not taught to be boastful. And obviously there's a line.
It happens that way.
Right. Obviously there's a line, but I think because of that societal conditioning that we as women, one, feel uncomfortable celebrating and putting ourselves out there and sharing our accomplishments with leaders or in front of peers who maybe aren't at the level that we're at right then, even though that has nothing to do with us. I think women kind of shy away from that. They want to make everybody feel included and they don't like to do that. And then I also think on the flip side, society, men in general, they expect women to be more humble. So when you see a woman sharing what she's done and bragging and celebrating, there's a little bit of a, who's this chick?
Yeah. Yes. So how do we change that though? How do we change the way that women celebrate what they accomplish in the work environment so that it can be celebrated by all, not just the person contributing or the team of the person contributing, that everyone is able to celebrate that? How do we start changing that?
So I think two things. One is internal, which I think is the more important one, and one is external.
Okay.
I'll start with the external one first because it's the easier one. If you are a leader in business, it's your job to create a culture where you celebrate wins.
Yeah.
And that's something that was very important to me. And I would have people celebrate even the smallest of wins, right? So sometimes something happens at work and everybody is drowning. And all you did was get your normal work done. But you got your normal work done under wild conditions.
Yeah.
And so your win is, I got all my work done this week. I accomplished what I was supposed to be accomplishing this week. And then other times you have really big ones. I landed a major deal. We launched a major system and I was a huge part of that. But you have to create a culture where your team learns to celebrate something every single week. And I think as women in life, you'll see on my posts every Friday, I do a win Friday. You could celebrate, I just got up this week. I mean,
Still alive.
I'm just surviving here, folks. I mean, it's a tense time. So that would be the external one, I think, is the creating a culture of celebration, because then you normalize it and you make it okay. You make it a safe space for people to want to share their accomplishments.
Right.
And then you also create a culture of other people not being intimidated by people celebrating. So you get that camaraderie and you get that joint celebration. So that's a responsibility as a leader on the external side.
Yeah.
You have one on the external.
Well, no, I'm just thinking back to when we were on the same team and we would have our team calls, and it was a requirement, not an option, a requirement that everybody had to celebrate 2 wins. And either you or I would come in and provide a win for someone if they couldn't think of one in the moment, because there were always things happening. There were always things happening, and it was so crazy all the time. I mean, we were always underwater, but anyway, but either you or I would come in and help with one. So they would always still have to provide one. And sometimes it would be a little bit more personal than professional, but at least it would still give them something to reflect on, to think back that was positive. Because I know there were times I got on a call, I'd be like, I don't have any wins. I'm over this week. But
I know.
I do remember that. And then you would come in and tell me what my win was.
Yes, as a leader, it is your job to know your team and know what pressure they're under and what they are accomplishing. And then you're right. I totally forgot that we did have to force it on the team in the beginning.
Yeah.
Then it became a normal thing, and that sometimes people struggle to see their wins. And when you come in as a leader or you've created that culture, and we would often have teammates say, if it wasn't me saying as her boss, oh, Rebecca, you actually did this, it would be a teammate be like, oh, you totally saved my ass with that project earlier this week. That was a huge win. And when you create that culture as a leader, I think that's huge. That's tremendous. But if you create that culture, then externally celebrations become less of
they become the norm.
Right. They become the norm, and it becomes very comfortable, and it becomes exciting for everyone. And the more, there's actually science behind this, but the more you praise yourself, your brain says, the brain chemicals release say, I want more of that. And so when you celebrate something as a group and as a group of employees and workers and whatever, your team will go, we want more of that. And so it actually increases the production of your team.
Yeah. It's like manifesting, right? What do they always tell you? Wake up and think about things that you're grateful, or one positive thought in the morning sets the tone for the rest of the day.
Yes.
So it really is all about mindset when it comes down to it. Keeping yourself in a positive mindset.
And that's such a great segue into the internal ones. Having the positive mindset in the morning to start out, what kind of day is it going to be? Having the positive mindset at the end, and especially the reason we do it on Fridays, and we used to do it then, was it's the end of your week when you're usually exhausted and you're like, I don't even care. I just want the weekend. I don't want to celebrate. And you have to be intentional about it. Yeah. But I also think internally, if you don't celebrate yourself, if nobody else is celebrating you, you have to be the one to celebrate yourself, because if you don't do that, your brain is not going to encourage you to keep working that hard or to grow or to accomplish things, and you're really not appreciating yourself. So you have to really be intentional about the positive mindset and also finding wins, finding something. And somebody told me one time, if all you had to give today was 40% and that's what you gave, then you gave 100% of what you could give.
It's so funny you say that. I just listened to Michelle Obama on a podcast, and she said, as the first lady, as an attorney, she had another job. She had 7 things happening when Barack was running. This was before he was even known or anything.
Right.
And then when he got into the White House, she had even more responsibilities. And she said, I'm one that likes to give 120%. And I had to realize that if 50% of one of these 7 things was all that they were going to get from me that day, that's all I could give. And I had to give myself grace, but that's what I gave and that's what they got. But at least I showed up. And so I think those are things too, because I always think about that. Like, I'm not going to do it if I can't give it my all. Right. Like I'm not going to half-ass anything. And I don't know any other way.
No. And we just talked about this. It's actually a sign on the wall that an old team got me. You have to be okay with 80%. I had a boss tell me one time, Katy, roll it out at 80% and then give a timeline for the last 20% to catch up. And I was like, 80%?
God, for what?
80% is almost a C. I don't know. Like, have you lost your mind? No. So I think it's very hard for us to celebrate when we don't hit that max. It's pretend, right? It's an illusion that we make up in our brains. We create our own rules. We create our own scores. And then when we don't hit just that one, we forget to celebrate that. Wait a second, we got that to 80% with minimal resources in limited time, with no errors, with this is great, you know, and having to celebrate that. So it has to be intentional, I think.
Absolutely. When did you start to learn to self-advocate? Because one of the things, if you don't self-advocate, we know that you really don't get to propel yourself forward unless you have someone there that's cheerleading you on your entire career. So, you know, you have to self-advocate. When did you start to learn to self-advocate for yourself?
I don't really have a problem self-advocating. I mean, I could think back to elementary school. Some boy grabbed me and I bit him and I drew blood and my mom got called to the school. And when they asked, why did I do that? I said, he grabbed me around my waist and I couldn't breathe. And I told him to let go and he didn't. So I bit him. And oh, well, he's bleeding and he can go home and cry to his mom, but he won't put his hands on me again. And that was a start. And then I think I'm shared on here quite a bit. I was raised by a teacher. And a retired Marine. So speaking up was built into me. And I would have the reverse. I had no problem advocating for myself. You were never going to sit next to me in a meeting and take credit for my work. I will call you out and I will call you out publicly. Because if you have the audacity to do that, then I'm going to have the audacity to correct you in this forum. And that's not on me. That's on you.
Absolutely.
And I also think there have been moments where I've been so tired that I stopped self-advocating. And that's that moment. We always talk about the moment you know that you should leave an organization or an environment that you're in is when you start stepping out of character. And so I think being someone who knows how to self-advocate and would always do it and has zero problem, to get so tired that you stop doing it, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, I feel like the self-advocating I've done through the majority of my career. It's the self-promotion to get me to the next level for everyone else to see outside of my team that I've struggled with.
Yes,
right.
Me too.
The advocating all day for myself and for my team, not an issue. But it's the promotion piece that it has always been more of a hindrance. Not so much now, but I would say 10, 15 years ago, yes, most definitely.
But I think as leaders on a team, I've had people work for me who couldn't advocate for themselves. And it was my responsibility in a one-on-one environment to say, what is it that you need? What are you struggling with? What is it that you want? Is there anything I'm not seeing here? And prompt people to self-advocate. And then I would coach them afterward and say, look, in the next meeting, we're going to start with this. Where you start with telling me what you need before we jump into anything else. and you can start helping people who have trouble advocating. And I also encourage you, if you're, I think for you and I,
Yeah.
who don't have a problem self-advocating,
Yeah.
using proximity. I think if you're the kind of person who struggles to self-advocate, get with someone who doesn't have that problem and
Yep.
model that behavior and then adapt it to your own in a way that you're comfortable. Maybe I have no problem calling people out in public forums. Zero. I will call you out. But if you don't want to do that, maybe you find a way to do it in a private way
Yeah.
where you pull that person aside and you say something to them. Whatever it is, see how you can advocate because you
Yeah.
do need to speak up for yourself. Nobody else is going to.
Correct. And then if there is a leader within your organization that you could get close to,
Yeah.
right, and start building a relationship that you could get support from them in advocating for yourself as well.
Yes, look for a mentor who's above you,
Yeah.
and that's also proximity in a different way
Mhm.
because and self-promotion.
Yep.
You have to make your work visible in front of people who will advocate for you in rooms that you're not in.
Correct.
That's 100% something that you need to do because if you have a boss, or I've had an interim boss before who was just trying to manage multiple departments, I would need to make sure that the things I was doing was being shared in other rooms so that other people could speak to it because I knew that person wasn't going to be able to.
There are times where you see women in environments and you're like, where did they come from? And there is the overnight success myth, right? Where you visibly think that, oh my God, look at them. They just got promoted overnight. But behind the scenes, they've been doing all this work. It just hasn't been visible in the grand scheme of things, right?
And I think sometimes that's where that proximity comes into play because you can be working hard. And let's use social media as an example and musicians. I was just talking about this with my daughter. There are so many musicians now who all of a sudden, in quotes, pop onto the scene and they've got albums and concerts or they're singing at the Super Bowl, whatever it might be. And everybody's like, where did they come from? Who is this person? And then when you look back, my daughter was telling me about several different artists who started by just recording themselves singing original songs on TikTok or something, putting it out there. And so they had this social media following for a very long time, but they were so small. And if they weren't in your algorithm, you didn't see them. So I think that's a great example for what happens where you may not see somebody until they pop off, right? Until they're on the main stage under all the spotlight.
Right.
But they've been working very hard behind the scenes, maybe in smaller ways. And it just took finally for one moment for the right person to see them, connect with them, or for enough people to start advocating that they got pushed to the top. And I think that people don't see that, especially with women.
Yeah. I feel like in my retail experience, it happened a little bit, right? Because I was managing stores in the Northeast and then I came into corporate and working in corporate. Everybody in the field, they would call me when they had issues. They used to call my boss. And then if he was busy, the calls would overflow to me. But you know me, I'm quick to come in and solve ones. So they were like, oh, I remember that the one guy in North Carolina, district manager, called me, couldn't get his printer work. And I was like, turn it upside down. I bet you there's a paperclip stuck in it. He was like, no, no, no. And I was like, I swear to God. Sure enough, there was a paperclip stuck in it.
Wow.
Like just simple thing, right? But
great tech advice here on today's podcast.
But because of that, then once I was going back into the field, everybody wanted me on their team because I was always the one that was helping them while they were in the field and I was in the office. And then when I had the chance to go back into the field, they're all like, no, we want her on our team. We want her on our team.
I get a similar experience with me where I was promoted within my department, but I didn't have proximity to executive leadership at all. And then there was a project that came up. It was relevant to my department. I was asked to go in and present on a very specific thing that I had done with my team. And after that, it was amongst executives. They called me in for multiple things. I got my whole job changed after that.
Yeah.
And so that would have never happened if I hadn't been performing and accomplishing things in my own department enough to speak to it when the executive leadership was looking to pivot to a project where this would influence it. So I think that's where preparation comes in. You can't slack off, right? You can't lower your standards even if you feel like, oh, my boss doesn't see it or my peers don't see it. Don't ever lower your standards.
No, somebody's always watching.
Somebody's always watching. You'll get that proximity. And in fairness, if the place you're in doesn't see it, what you do there, you will take with you to other companies, and you'll step in. I've seen this a million times.
Yeah.
You step into another company and you're so far ahead of where that company is that you become their A player.
Yeah.
Because now you can take them where they want to go, and they embrace you and they recognize your achievements. And so it doesn't matter if you're in a great environment where you feel like you can grow with that, or you feel stuck and you feel like, well, why am I doing this work? You do that work for you. Do the preparation, do the learning, do the hard work, because whether you get recognized here or there, that's the preparation piece. And then you have the courage to either move where you are,
Right.
or move out. And then you have that proximity.
Yeah.
And that's where your network comes into play. See all the links happening. It's not luck. There's no luck of the Irish in that.
We spoke about that in another episode, because when you look in a corporate environment, it's not encouraging, because a lot of the times you have very successful women, and if they just work together, everything would be great. But usually there is one or two that are singled out, and the rest become mean girls. It's either a lack of information. I mean, usually it comes from ignorance is where it comes from, because they either don't understand what these people are doing, they don't know what their jobs are, they don't have visibility to it. And so it just comes from a lack of knowledge, a lack of knowing what's really happening. It also could be from insecurity, but they end up isolating these other women or picking on them. And again, I use the term mean girls because that's all I think of right this moment. But they end up picking and not being nice to these one or two women on the team.
Yeah.
And that comes from, I don't know, comparing what they're doing and what they think the other people are doing. And that's why I say it's lack of knowledge, because they just don't have visibility or understanding into what those other people are doing. So they make assumptions, and then they make bad judgments on the people, right?
So you're talking about when women either are new to a company, or a woman gets promoted into a new department, and it seems like it's out of nowhere. It seems like they just got lucky, and who's this woman? And you're saying this is the reaction.
And then there's negative reactions from the other women that are on the team, in the company, whatever the case may be. So then they're either straight out mean, or just talk about the person behind their back. And then, it always gets back to that person.
Right.
Because it's not intended to be a secret. They don't want their feelings to be a secret, right? Like,
I think that's a slippery slope too. I was just talking about this actually in a networking group about the downside of comparison. Comparison oftentimes has a really negative connotation, because if someone comes in seemingly out of nowhere, or someone just got lucky, then you start comparing yourself to them, and you go, well, I have the same degree as them, and I've been here 10 years and they've only been here 5, and I've been on these major projects. What have they been on? I've never seen them before. And maybe that's where proximity came into play for them, because they could have only done 5 projects, but 2 of them that they did had proximity to senior leadership, and hence they got the promotion. And so I think you don't want to fall into the comparison trap in a negative way. And one of the things we were talking about was comparison in a healthy way looks like modeling. So I'll use you as an example for me. I always talk about Rebecca's amazing sense of urgency. She's so efficient because she doesn't get lost in the details, whereas I will get analysis paralysis sometimes. And so I will compare myself to Rebecca in that way and say, especially with our podcast, I'm like, you have to do this part, because I'll get stuck on that forever. And she'll call me and say, where are you with this? It's taking you too long to do this. But I will model her behavior and say, what would Rebecca do in this moment? And so it's a healthy comparison to say, I have an area that's an opportunity for me. This happens to be an area where Rebecca really excels. And so I'm going to model what she would do to make myself better. And I think when you see women get something because it looks like luck, instead of looking for where you've done something more than them, or what did they do compared, instead look at what has that person done, what have they done well, looking through the lens that you shared with us, proximity, courage, preparation, and go, what behavior can I model from that? And maybe also get to know that person.
That's what I was just going to say, is have a conversation with that person, understand what they've done, what steps they took to get to where they are. Instead of just hating on them, because that's basically what you're doing in a sense. And so again, it's because the corporate environment wasn't created with us in mind.
Yes.
And so we always think that we have to be super catty and claw our way to be the only woman at the top, where it doesn't have to be like that.
Yes.
What needs to happen is we get to the top and then bring all the women along with us to the
Yes.
top. But in doing so, getting to know those other women, taking any bias that you would have had initially out of the equation,
Mhm.
having a conversation and understanding who that person is, as opposed to making assumptions and coming to your own conclusions.
Absolutely. And I say that I just competed the other day, and I was in a competition for a speech. And the person that I was competing against, while that person was speaking, I was sitting there going, wow, I really like how they're doing this and that, and I can incorporate this. And this person is my literal competition,
Yeah.
right? I should be wanting to take them down. I want to win, right? I'm very competitive, but this is a constructive competition. And so I was more like, I really like the way that they paused right there, or
Yeah.
their usage of the stage space was great. And I think when you start to flip the script in your own mind to look at a healthy comparison of what can you model from a
Yeah.
person, you then avoid falling into that trap
Yeah.
of envy and negative comparison, and then also the scarcity mindset that we've been conditioned
Yeah.
into too.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. So it's funny because in talking about that, when we talk about when you're healthy comparison versus unhealthy comparison,
Yeah.
I think the biggest piece of that is what we would call invisible labor. But invisible labor is just preparation.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
Do the work regardless.
Yeah.
And then it'll eventually either lead you somewhere new or it'll lead to recognition. But in the meantime, if you're comparing yourself to someone else,
Yeah.
look for the invisible labor because it's there. It's
Yeah.
definitely there.
I think once you start comparing yourself in an unhealthy way, in the negative manner, try to rethink, but also look for people in your network that can support you in mentoring, help give you a better guidance on how to compare yourself to someone who has that experience, who's grown in their career. And if you don't have those people in your network, try to identify some people to have in your network, because it's important to have someone who's had more experience than you've had to be able to ask and bounce ideas off of.
And can I chime in there? Because
Yeah.
when you talk about mentorship, I know we talk about mentorship a lot, and especially women need to seek out mentorship. Mentorship doesn't usually find us. You have
Right.
to look for it. But I also think in corporate environments, there's a lot of politics. And as I shared before, I have no problem advocating for myself, calling people out in public. It makes me apolitical. Okay. I'm not going to play the political games with you. But I saw people who were really good at the political stuff, and oftentimes they would be less qualified than some of their peers in their departments, but they would get the promotions because they could navigate the politics appropriately.
Yeah.
And so I think when you're looking for a mentor, you're looking at that comparison and you're modeling, don't just look to one person. You can have
Yes.
one mentor, one group that you go to who's more of the overall person. But if you work in a highly political corporate office and you intend on staying there, then you should look to the people who navigate those politics well and compare yourself to them.
Yeah.
And start modeling some of the behaviors that you're comfortable with, but then others, it's very hard for me to advocate for navigating political environments because I don't really like that.
Yeah.
I would leave. I would model myself out the door. But if you're not in a position where you can leave, and then start looking at the people who are navigating that environment in a really constructive way, in a healthy way, and look for what you can model with confidence and without sacrificing your own values.
Yeah.
So that's a really thin line.
I don't like that political shit either.
I don't either.
It's too much. Like, I'm not going to kiss your ass just for the sake of kissing your ass.
I'm not kissing anybody's
That's
ass
what I'm saying.
ever.
Yeah. It's not worth it.
You shouldn't either, but I understand sometimes people feel like they have to.
Yes,
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And if you are an ass kisser, I just want to call this out. If you are an ass kisser, you're selling yourself short. If you think that the only way that you can get ahead is by brown nosing or kissing ass, you're selling yourself short. You don't have to do that. Go do the preparation part. Go do the networking part. You can have proximity without having to sacrifice who you are and participate in that stuff. So if you're sitting here going, I feel attacked, you know, they're both saying they would never kiss anybody's ass. And I'm over here kissing so-and-so's ass because it's the only way I get shit done. I get it. I get that sometimes we fall into those traps.
Yeah.
But catch yourself. It is not worth sacrificing your own value, your own growth, your own learning. They're not teaching you anything.
Right.
And if their ego requires your lips to their cheeks, you're not in the right place. So maybe get out there and start networking and seek out a different mentor so that you don't get stuck in that. You don't lose your own potential.
So one of the things that can block your luck, if you will, would be fear. And having the fear that you're going to fail, that, or just fail. Yes. I'm not ready. Yes. You have self-doubt all day. It happens all the time. Or I'm going to watch so-and-so, let them, they've earned it now. I'll just wait my turn. I feel like
it's not perfect.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I don't know anybody who's a perfectionist. So yeah, I feel like you end up giving yourself bad luck in those senses, right? You have to be able to be confident and aware of what your skills are and where you excel.
I think it's perceived bad luck, but it's fear. Yeah. And yes, for those of you just listening and not watching, Rebecca was pointing at me aggressively during the perfectionist part because I am a perfectionist, and somebody told me that perfectionism is just fear dressed up in a big word. And I was like, first of all, I'm not scared of anything. I'm not scared of anything. But no, I'm scared of not meeting my own standards.
Yeah.
And I feel like any work that I put out is a representation of me. And therefore, it needs to be the best that I can put out. And so when a timeline constricts me to 80%, like that former boss told me, I would keep holding back that project. But putting that project out at 80% was better than what any of my peers could have done.
Yeah.
And so it really would have propelled me forward. It would have gotten me the proximity. It required courage, all the things you've talked to me about today. And I think you really have to check yourself with the fear, because fear will look like bad luck, but really it's you holding yourself back. And it could be real fear, like Rebecca was sharing. It could be fear dressed up as perfectionism.
I think bottom line, any growth and development that you have in your life, career, whatever, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And you have to be able to be comfortable putting yourself out there. And I don't know how you overcome the fear, because like I just suck it up and do it, right? Like
you do it anyway.
Yeah.
That's what you do it. I just did a speech about this actually. And I said, I'll just share if you don't mind. My dad used to say, you move forward or you die. It was very dramatic. You move forward or you die. And I'm not going to go into why he would say things like that. But one of the things I said was, if I was scared, I would do it anyway. I'm going to lock arms with fear.
Yeah.
And we're going to walk forward together, shaky legs and all, because we can't stay here. Staying here is a death sentence. I know that's super dramatic.
Yeah.
But it's the truth. Fear will hold you back.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know. I've always just done it. Whether I've been happy doing it or not, I just do it because it needs to be done.
I'm a movie fanatic. And I don't know if you've seen the movie We Bought a Zoo.
Yes.
So Matt Damon talks about 20 seconds of courage. Just 20 seconds of courage is all you need. And I thought that was a great example of, you see somebody, I know we don't do water coolers anymore. Let's hope your office has like a cool cappuccino machine or something where everybody gets coffee. But when you're at the cappuccino machine and you see the CEO or something, 20 seconds of courage and get yourself out there and just say, hey, you know, I saw you on whatever TV show, or I saw that you were at this sports game recently. And, you know, I used to play football in college, whatever it might be. Just take that leap and put yourself out there and engage.
Absolutely.
Or say, I don't know if you've seen, I know there's a big focus for the company on increasing our membership. And we just had a project that increased membership in this area by 30%. Your CEO probably doesn't know about that, but be like, I was so excited that we decided to focus on this as a company this year.
Absolutely.
And then people will be hating on you because you'll be involved in a project.
Because you created your own luck with proximity, courage, and preparation.
Yeah. I just realized that stands for PCP, and I don't know if we want to encourage that.
I mean, however you spend your
PCP,
however you spend your free time. So moving forward, to create your own luck with proximity, courage, and preparation.
Today's the perfect day because it's St. Patrick's Day and the luck of the Irish will be on your side.
Absolutely. Monthly, you should be doing something to create more visibility for yourself.
So that's the proximity piece, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Quarterly, you can either do one stretch project or have a conversation with someone who can eventually be your sponsor and advocate for you.
Yes.
And then annually, take one big risk.
Just one. Wow, that's a good one. And can I go back to one thing you said? You said quarterly take on a stretch project. Sometimes you don't have the ability to do that, in your current role, but that's where that proximity and networking piece comes in, because if you're in a group, you might be able to take a stretch project through that group, and that's going to give you proximity elsewhere. So don't get blinders on to think that you can only find a stretch project or you can only step out of your comfort zone in your workplace. That would be ideal because that's where the promotions are the most visible. But if you do that in another organization or somewhere you're networking or with someone else, you never know where that's going to take you. So to stick with what Rebecca's giving you, look outside of the box as well.
Absolutely. And know that you have to create your own luck. No one's going to come tap you on the shoulder and say, it's your time. You want to be able to get that proximity, have the courage, and be prepared.
Yes. So in honor of St. Patrick's Day, we're going to close out with a little bit of a wish for you and hopefully some Irish luck. May the luck of the Irish lead to the happiest heights and the highway you travel be lined with green lights. Wherever you go and whatever you do, may the luck of the Irish be there with you. So we hope the luck of the Irish is with you in your PCP, your proximity, courage, and power. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Follow us on all your socials, NFNA Podcast. Until next time.